Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Lost and Found podcast. This is your host, Amanda. I'm so excited to see you and, well, talk to you, I guess, rather. You're seeing me if you're watching on YouTube here. But welcome back. It's been a minute. This will be part 1 of 2 to close out the new year. I have a lot that I want to say, but I know that it can be really overwhelming to listen to an extra long podcast. Especially because I am no Joe Rogan. I don't have 3 hours to spare just rattling on. So I'm going to split this up. This episode, I wanted to kind of just catch up with you and let you know what's been going on. We haven't done a solo episode since October. And so at the time of this recording, it's the end of December. We're leading into the last week where it blends into January. And there's been a lot going on. A lot going on behind the scenes. I have not put out a solo episode. Just 1, I haven't had time. 2, we've had a lot of guests. And so I've been trying to make sure that I put the guests out there. You seem to really enjoy the guest episodes a lot. A lot of you comment on the guest episodes, but the people that know me personally or that feel comfortable enough to DM me directly, they mention loving the solo episodes. So I'm going to try and do my best in 2026 to get some more solos out there to give you more insight into who I am and what's going on behind the scenes with the show. But to be quite honest, the last 3 months of the year have been kind of hell in different ways, right? And some days better than others, some days worse than others, and some days just you woke up and you realized, all right, I survived. Let's try this again. Let's do this again. And so I have a lot that I wanted to kind of catch you up on first. So let me make sure I'm pulling up my notes and get to it. So yeah, the last solo episode, which will somewhat relate to what we're going to talk about in today's episode plus part 2. But the last episode was episode 105, and that came out October 15th, 2025. And I talked about the top 10 regrets that people have when they die and how to live your life in a way so that you don't also get to a point where you feel that way when it's your turn. And I really enjoyed talking about that one because it was based on something I saw on social media, but it seems to be a recurring theme, especially at the end of the year. People start reflecting on their year, reflecting on their performance, reflecting on their progress, where they are, where they want to go, and what's the distance in between each of those things. And there's also within that umbrella, regrets of the elderly, the dreams of the youth, where do the two realities meet, and how did you get here? How did we get to this place? Whether it's a happy place or a sad place, I'm not sure. But let's kind of catch you up here. And I want to talk you through what's been going on behind the scenes of the show. One of the reasons we kind of dropped off in December, we only published, I think, 2 episodes with guests. Yeah, I published only 2 episodes in November and only 2 episodes in December. We had a lot going on. We did not meet our typical quota of once a week. And there's a reason for that. And I'm sorry, I'm experimenting with my camera. I'm trying to use my phone on my laptop. I figured out how to get it to be used for Riverside. Anyway, that was another thing that happened. And I ordered new equipment. I've cleaned out a lot of my office and I'm trying to set it up so that way I can record in there from now on. And the content will look just cleaner since I'm using my new the iPhone, the 17 Pro Max now to record. I tell myself 2025 was the year I was going to elevate, and 2025 was the year that humbled me even further. 2026, it's the year that I elevate this show a little bit further. I digress. But just a lot's been going on. So to kind of give you backstory about what's been happening and why that reflection is, those events have caused this particular type of reflection today. And so October, November, and December of this year have been a bit chaotic for my mom and dad, but particularly my mom. My maternal grandmother has been sick. She turned 90 earlier this year in 2025, summer of 2025, and she was doing very well. She could move around easily on her own. She could go to the bathroom. She could cook for herself. She couldn't stand for very long periods, but she was relatively independent, and we were very happy for her. Overall, things seemed to be doing well. And she had caretakers for different hours of the day. So part-time caretakers in the morning and sometimes part-time caretakers at night. Otherwise, the nighttime caretakers would be my mom and my uncle. And that's the way we've been going on for the last several years, for the most part, right? And then my mom would do a lot of the primary care for doctor's visits and meds and making sure that everything that related to my grandmother was up to date, paperwork-wise, financially, etc. And making sure that anyone that did come and take care for her was paid on time and had their schedules set, and just overall general management. And that has been going on since about 2021, when my parents originally moved back to Kingsport. And my mom took on primary caretaker status for my grandmother. But this year seemed pretty promising, like things were going well, that maybe my parents could start to take a step back. They started looking for homes closer to North Carolina, especially after my brother and his wife had their first baby. Yay. So if any of you have seen my Instagram or my TikTok and looked at videos of a really cute baby with blue eyes, it is not my son. I did not go and get pregnant and have no baby daddy, nothing even remotely close to the sort. It is my nephew. Sweet, sweet, sweet boy. But come October, my grandmother started to show signs of some memory loss issues. And it was small things where she would just kind of start to forget what had happened earlier in the day, or who had come to see her, or the names of her medications, or what day of the week it was. And she was getting fixated on certain things, or she would have different sleep patterns, or tell us that she had headaches, and we would go and get her tested. Sometimes this happens for the elderly. They get UTIs, and it can be very dangerous, and it can start the UTI symptoms that are exerted or shown actually mimic what looks like dementia, and that's not necessarily the case. And so my parents and my uncle did everything they could to, get her checked, get her updated, get her the things that she needed, make sure that her meds were corrected, her blood pressure medications. Things had been, because she had been doing so well over the summer, they were taking her off of certain things in the fall. But I think maybe the pendulum swung too far at the time, and it affected her blood pressure. And so her blood pressure had been kind of crazy off and on October through November. And then come Thanksgiving, fast forwarding a bit, come Thanksgiving, they had just run her through some tests, rescheduled some other ones until after the holidays to kind of give her a break. But come Thanksgiving, they had scheduled her with a speech therapist to help her, because she didn't technically have dementia, but it's possible that she had a TIA. A TIA, transient ischemic attack, or what's called a mini stroke. It happens when blood flow to the brain is temporarily blocked, causing stroke-like symptoms that resolve quickly from minutes to hours. And so a critical warning sign of a potential full stroke. So you typically need to get medical help immediately, even if the symptoms disappear, because the TIAs can cause lasting brain changes and signal a future stroke risk. So she was starting to have apparently temporary blockages, which, even though the symptoms did resolve, it did kind of cause damage to her memory. With age at 90, that's not unexpected. And they must have been minor enough, because we never noticed an actual physical decline. She didn't have a drooping face or numbness in her limbs or inability to move anything, but she did have the blood pressure signs. And we thought it was just medication based, but maybe the upping and the downing and the upping and the downing of her blood pressure stuff caused the TIAs to happen. I don't know for sure, but I'm not a doctor. Again, this is not medical advice. Do not take this as medical advice. I am not advising anyone on how to take care of their grandparents. I'm just trying to summarize all the chaos that has happened and cut out what's not necessary to explain. But by Thanksgiving, we were dealing with the memory issues, and we were trying to help her get back onto a schedule and on a medication regimen that would do what it needs to do for her health, but then also not trigger her further, because the memory loss clearly was agitating her anxiety. And when you're 90 in a wheelchair, where you're so used to being independent and now you no longer are, it can hit you, right? It can irritate you, it can frustrate you. And I'm sure someone with far more education into geriatric studies could explain this better than I could about the psychology of the elderly, but it's just been such an odd time period over the last 3 months to see such a drastic drop in capability and how quickly that happened, and the need for more care, for more intensive or focused care than what we were necessarily thinking of. And so right after Thanksgiving, she had such a bad blood pressure spike. It rose so high that she got completely weak and couldn't get out of bed on her own. And so even though my mom had spent the night to help her the next morning, my mom could not get her out of bed. And right now, my grandmother has a king-size bed, and so she couldn't easily maneuver her to get her out of bed and put her into her wheelchair to take her to the bathroom in the morning. And so they had to call the ambulance, got her into an ambulance, went to the ER. They started medicating her for the blood pressure. And that's when they think we're able to reconfirm the TIA stuff and that reconfirm that it's not true dementia yet and that it's just age-related issues and that they could continue the speech therapy once she was out of the hospital, but that they were most likely going to need to add on physical therapy to rebuild the weakness that she had lost while being in the ER. So for the entire month of December, my parents and family and the caretakers that are available for her friends have been visiting my grandmother and helping my grandmother in and out of the hospital or in rehab long-term care situations. Most recently, after Christmas, it appeared that she was getting well enough or physically capable enough to be able to go back home. And so my mom and uncle have been doing everything they can to try and prepare for that. But over the last month, or 2 months, I guess, because it happened a few times in November as well, I've watched the toll that it takes on my mom, and I've watched their relationship suffer a bit, and I know my mom is being rational about it and, understanding, like, my grandmother is sick. She's older. Weakness sometimes in the Southern culture, it's hard. It's hard to show weakness. It's hard to show the loss of vitality. It's hard to come to terms with the fact that your life is ending, and accepting help or admitting that you need help is really hard when you're already helpless, and internalizing all those fears and internalizing those concerns and, quite honestly, just shit. It's so much easier to take it out on the person that's there day in and day out. And it's so much easier to take it out on a family member that's there day in and day out because it's convenient. You're right there. I can lash out at you because you're the person that's here. You're the person that's making decisions with me and for me about my life day in and day out. Growing up, I always knew my mom loved her life. She had a good life growing up. She didn't go without by any means. And for the most part, had a really good childhood with her siblings. But I know growing up, my mom always felt like the black sheep. She felt a little bit like the outsider, the wild child, the one that the parents would worry about. Is she going to make it? Is she going to succeed? She's marrying a man without a business. She's starting on her own. She's going into computers, and computers are a fad. And are you sure about this? Are you sure about this? And tooth and nail, she clawed her way into being a successful entrepreneur and has been for a long time. And I'm not going to sit here and presume to know exactly what my mom or my grandmother are thinking, but as an outside observer over the last, what I've been here since end of May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So the last 7, not me at 34, counting on my hands, 7 months. Over the last 6, 7 months that I've been here, watching their relationship and their interactions, it's taught me a lot and given me a crystal ball kind of perspective. Because my mom jokes, but I think that she only jokes because there's a bit of truth in it. That she jokes that, you watch out. This is your future. Watch out. This is what it's going to be like when it's your turn. I know she jokes because she's trying not to cry, just like the rest of us. I do worry that could be my reality. That 20, God willing, 30 years from now when she's in her 90s, if this is what it's going to look like between the two of us, am I really prepared for that? Am I really prepared for my mother to resent me openly? Am I really prepared for her to blame me for what's happened to her and her body and her theoretical now inability to get around or to take care of herself. And I'm not saying my grandmother blames my mom for this part, but in theory, if my mom is also the last remaining parent, if my father were to go first, like, would she blame me for that, for her loneliness, for enduring something without him? And I'm also very practical and rational and logical like my mom. I think that's where I get the analytical skill that I used with the government for so long. Came from her engineering brain. Will my mom resent that too? Will she resent my rationality for negativity? My mom and I, for those that don't know, I also had a very good, very, very, very good childhood. I can count on just one hand the amount of bad memories that I have. But there were plenty of times that I would fight with my mom. We would butt heads a lot. When I was younger, people would tell me that you do that because you guys are so similar. And I used to hate that answer, right? I'm nothing like my mom. I don't talk like this. I don't say these things. I don't do this stuff. I don't act this way. I don't treat people this way, blah, blah, blah. And it took me until my mid-20s to fully understand who my mom is as a person. You know, people talk about you have that moment where you realize, well, I was this many days old, or I was this many years old when I realized my mom was, or my parents were just people. They weren't the gods or the amazing authority figures that I had put on these pedestals. They're just human beings. And I think that probably happened to me somewhere in my mid-20s, because that was when we finally stopped fighting, I guess, so much, stopped arguing so much about all kinds of things, because I had just learned that I can't fight a ghost, right? If something was coming up that was angering my mom or upsetting her or making her feel judgmental towards me, I had to learn to not take that defensively. So much of what we would probably fight about, looking back on it, right? Like hindsight being 2020. And again, this is me being a girl that does not actually go to professional therapy. She just has a podcast. A lot of what we would fight about, when I really, really reflect on what it is, it's our own insecurities. She would hate herself about something and use that to antagonize herself internally, and then if I did something that was the opposite of that or better than that or whatever, it would cause a rift. And then if I had and the same thing would happen to me. If I had an insecurity and she did something that was, when you hate it when your mother's right. Kid, she's always right. Shit like that, right? And it got to a point where in my mid-20s, I guess I finally realized, if I'm tired of fighting, the only way to change our relationship is if I choose to change. I have to choose to not react. I have to choose to not be antagonized by these situations. I have to choose to not let a fight get further or a bad situation get worse, because I can't fix it. I can't fight a ghost. I can't solve that problem for her by trying to be rational on the other end of the fight. That kind of a thing, right? And especially the last 3 months of having to watch my mom deal with the same thing she had to deal with back in 2021, and they're resurfacing. I'm watching her go from being in a really, really bad place in 2021, mentally, emotionally, trying to be a full-time caretaker for her mother. And I remember the heart-to-hearts that she would have with me in 2021, which felt radically unexpected apologies and for things that I had let go of for years, right? I just kind of figured there's never a point in holding on to an apology from someone that you think you deserve it from, because the truth is it's never. The only way you can live your life is to accept that it is never going to come. And then if it does come, great. Hopefully you're in a place to actually receive it. But more often than not, the apology from that person that wronged you or hurt you or burned you, it's never going to come. And so in 2021, when my mom started to do these things and help her mother, she was reflecting on things that I never thought would ever happen. And especially over the last, 5-ish years, she and I have gotten much, much better. And probably the best our relationship has ever been in a long, long time. And so it's upsetting to see my mom having a hard time after working so hard to improve her own relationship with her own mother. It's really upsetting to see that deteriorate right in front of her eyes. No matter how much everybody tries to remind her, it's just dementia, it's just age, it's just whatever, it doesn't stop it from hurting, right? And it's just scary. It's scary to watch this unfold for her. It's scary to watch this unfold for my grandma. It's scary to watch this unfold for myself, because as selfish as this sounds, I don't want that to be my life. I don't want my parents to get to a place where they feel helpless in their 90s. I don't want my parents to get to a place where they're not prepared or they feel scared of what's about to happen to them. I don't want them to get to a place where they can't take care of themselves. Now, granted, yes, like as you age, it's physically impossible, right? You're going to have to ask for help. It is what it is. But to get to a place where my mother may think that in her aged mind, it's okay to lash out at me, that it's going to be okay to say the shit that my grandmother is saying now to me. And I know deep down, if this hypothetical crazy thing was going to happen, I know deep down that she knows that she doesn't intend to say it, and she knows that she doesn't actually mean it. But I know that no matter how much I know right now, and can acknowledge right now that it's not real, that it's just the aging process, I know it's going to hurt. I know it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt to see my relationship deteriorate, because it hurts right now to watch hers deteriorate. And so a lot of that's been going on behind the scenes, and I've been helping out where I can, and I've been very grateful to my job. They've been very flexible when I've needed to work at the hospital or at home, or at my parents' home, or at my grandma's home, just kind of depending on what's going on. So I've been very grateful to have a company that is supportive and understanding of this current season of my life. So I definitely want to put that out there. So it's been coming up a lot more, right? This, one of the main reasons, right, that I moved here was to help my parents. I am doing what I said I would do. And to me, that feels like I'm living in integrity, which is very important to me. But today was one of the worst fights my mom has had, and she told my dad and I about it. And it made me sad and reflective on the end of my life and the end of my parents' life, the end of my grandparents' lives, and how vicious deteriorating mental health can be, how vicious pride and fear can really be, and how important it is to not give up on love, and not give up on kindness, and not give up on hope, and not give up on people that are willing to help you. I'm not going to say that it's easy to let go of your pride. I'm not going to say that I'm coming up with all the magical solutions for how to make my grandmother do better, feel better, act better, whatever. This is just an episode to explain it is what it is. I don't have a better way to explain it right now. It just, this is my life. This is what it is. This is what I've been thinking about lately. By being here and near my family, I love my family. I want my family to be happy. I want everybody to be healthy. But I also want everybody to live. I want them to live their lives, live their moments, really embrace what's left on this planet, because the time's going to fly by. The end of the year is already here. 2025 wasn't supposed to end this quickly, but it has. And in less than a month, I'm going to be 35, living in East Tennessee. Still can't shake the feeling that this isn't it, right? This isn't the end of my life. This is not it for me. I love my parents. I love my grandparents. I love my brother and his wife and my nephew. But the mountains I don't connect to it as much as everybody else does. Everybody else wants to stay, or at least be in the area. I know my parents want to move eventually to a different house and not be in Kingsport area, the Tennessee side at least of the border. And I get that. And they flip back and forth a lot about, do we stay here? Do we go out west? Do we get a beach place in Charleston? Like, where do we want to be? I don't think they fully know, really. But a lot of the reason they can't leave can't or won't is because of the grandparents. And I see the toll that it takes on them individually and on their marriage. My parents are strong. I'm not saying that to say that I assume something bad is happening, but just that as an outside observer, I can see it. I can see the toll that it takes. And it's in the little conversations, right? It's nothing really ever explicit that they've said, but throughout the 7 months, they've asked me questions about what's going on at work. What are you doing? Where are you going? Where are you traveling? Who are you dating? What's going on? And 2 conversations have really stuck out to me that have really triggered a lot of these thoughts in my own head about what do you want out of life, and have you found what you're looking for? It's the question that I try and remember to ask every guest on this show. But at one point, my parents were asking me, about who I'm dating. My aunt had asked my mom, and my mom was like, I don't know. Probably nobody. I don't know. Is Amanda on the dating apps? And my mom's like, I've got time to think about that when I've got everything else on my plate. But she did eventually ask me at dinner, are you dating anyone? What's going on? And Of course, I said no. Not that I don't want to date or that I wouldn't be interested in going on a date, but there's something unsettling about being here that makes me not want to try, because I think maybe that might have been part of the reason in Philly too that I just didn't date around, because I didn't want to. I knew deep down I wasn't going to be there forever, and so settling roots somewhere didn't make sense to me, or it didn't feel fair to do that to someone else. When the truth was, I wanted out. I think that's what's happening here in East Tennessee and in Nashville as well, where I let the transientness of my life and of where I was make that choice for me. And if I wasn't really happy with where I was, how could I really be happy in a relationship that would keep me where I was if I wasn't happy there to begin with? Why perpetuate the cycle in my head? So I told my parents, no, I'm not. That living in East Tennessee was just temporary, and that I'd love to move somewhere where I feel like I fit in more, like California or Florida, because I feel like that lifestyle choice is more me. I like the beach more, not necessarily the mountains. I like accessing healthier food. I like outdoor sports, running and kayaking and swimming, and just the lifestyle of being in the gym in the sunshine and the vibes of Florida and California I always gravitated towards. But again, moving is expensive. California is exorbitantly expensive, so that's really not an option. But Florida could be tangible. I have friends that live there on both coasts, and the major cities have really good airports. I would be able to come back to North Carolina anytime I needed to for family and stuff. But their response to that, well, East Tennessee is temporary, blah, blah. They're like, well, okay, but watch out, because that's what we said in 2021 and we're still here. This is a stopover, but it's almost 2026 now and we're still here. And so that kind of hit me too, that shit, they're not wrong. I'm about to be 35 and they are not wrong. And I think a lot of that worry that I still have about it is because I'm watching these terrifying things, sad things happen to my grandmother. But that's the reality of life, right? You're going to get older, things are going to happen. And it's just reinforced into me, you need to prepare for the end of your life. Get long-term care insurance, have a plan if you're going to depend on state healthcare coverage, Medicare, Medicaid, all that kind of thing. If not, are you going to go private? How are you going to prepare to pay for private? What does that look like? Etc. My grandmother's lucky. She has 4 children. She has 4 children that can and do participate in her end of life care right now. I have none. So how am I going to plan for that? What's that going to be like? What do I prioritize? Do I prioritize finding my career, just trying to be happy, moving somewhere else, starting over somewhere else? Or do I settle for the reality that I'm in and stay here and get married, have kids, do the whole shebang and see what happens? Is that even something I still want at the end of the day? And truth is, I battle with that all the time. But the other day, one of the other conversations that I had with my parents, we were in the car coming back from something, I can't remember, and they were going to drop me off at my house, and I was in the back seat and they were in the front, and they were talking about, I can't remember how it came up, but they were talking about where they wanted to move. And my dad casually brings up, well, okay, if you don't want to be here anymore, then let's go. Let's move to Wyoming and get land. And a long time ago, before 2021, they used to talk about that. They were big into watching the Longmire series on TV. I think they had read the books previously. And when they had done a big national parks out west tour in the later 2010s, after my brother had graduated out of college, they went and did a big out west trip, and they spent a lot of time in Wyoming, and they looked at land out there and property and stuff to like build up, and never pulled the trigger. They didn't want to be far away from their kids, and at the time all the remaining grandparents were healthy and stuff, but it just never came to fruition, which is why my father brought up Wyoming just as an example. And my mom was like, well, I don't want to move to Wyoming. He's like, okay, then where do you want to go? And she's like, you know that we talk about this all the time. What do you mean you don't know where I want to go? And it was a tense situation because of whatever we had already been doing or talking about beforehand. And this is something that they go back and forth on. Now they love each other deeply, madly, truly. And I know that they will end up wherever it is that will make them happy, if that's in the mountains here in the east or if that's in the mountains out west. Either way. But I can see how I've spent the last couple of years being wrapped up in how stuck I feel and how unhappy I feel. Hopefully not in a selfish way, but it is inherently selfish because, again, I can afford to do so. I don't have kids. I don't have a husband. I don't have a partner, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. I don't have anybody else relying on me besides Dirks, and Dirks is just a dog, so he's going to go wherever I go. So I can selfishly take the time to figure out what to do with my life. I'm in my 30s. I have time, theoretically. But that conversation with my parents where my dad's throwing out locations and my mom can't pick a location. And again, I'm just paraphrasing for the sake of this episode, but I don't know. It didn't really hit me until that moment that you don't have to be in your 20s or 30s to feel stuck. You don't have to be young to be worried about how to pivot your life or how to take advantage of what's in front of you. It can happen to you at any age. You can be in your mid-60s with 3 grown kids and a grandchild and a wife and still wake up and look at your life and go, oh my God, how do I get unstuck? It hurt my heart a little to know that it was my own dad that felt that way. In that moment, he felt that way. And so that has just served as all these things that I'm listing off in this episode right now. All these things are just reaffirming to me that I don't have to have all the answers, because I may still get into my 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s and not have the answers. But one thing I know for sure is that I don't want to get to a point in my life where I don't have the answers because I didn't try. I think it's very different if you've tried all kinds of things and you've traveled all over the world, or you've moved to a bunch of different places, or you got married multiple times and you gave it the old college try. Like, that is different, a different kind of lost where you really just don't know yourself or what's going on with you, versus somebody who's never tried it all, who didn't get to do everything that they wanted to do before they died, who is going to the end of it with regret. That's a different lost. And I don't want to be like that. I know there's going to come a time where I will step up and I will take care of my parents and I will do whatever it is that they need to help them when the time comes for more full-time care. I'm very lucky that both of them right now are physically capable and able and do a lot. And I don't want this to sound like a sad sack of an episode, but they've got plenty to live for. They've got 3 healthy kids and 3 grandkids. They've got a lot going on. They're doing a wonderful anniversary trip in April and May. They're going to Europe. They do romantic stuff together. You know, they're keeping the love alive. Don't worry about Mitch and Leslie, you guys. This is me simply just trying to be honest about the things that I've been reflecting on over the last couple of months, that I am very much living in a space and in a reality where those questions come up almost every day. What do you want the end of your life to look like? How do you want to feel about the people around you at the end of your life? What do you want to prepare for? What are you willing to accept or not accept, or do or not do, to make the end of your life as comfortable as possible or as frustrating as possible? How do you prepare to let go of someone that you love? We all know that everything ends, everything in life ends, but how do you prepare for and reconcile with those things when it's more tumultuous than you would have liked? It's hard to watch my mom have to deal with the whiplash, because I've seen it. I've seen the days where the positive days, where the gratitude is there, the appreciation is there, the kindness is there. I've seen the days where it's just mid. Everything's going in a straight line. And then I've seen the days where things plummet quickly over something minute or over a perceived slight. And I know my mom is trying. I know she's trying really hard to not let old habits ruin what she's worked for, the relationship that she's built up, the emotional intelligence that she's built up for herself. And I pray to God that when the time comes for the 2 of us, it doesn't end up like that either, because I know that's going to be really hard for me. And that is selfish to say, that I want this phase of my life, when it's my turn in my 60s to do this, that it doesn't look like this. And I know that one of the best ways for me to make sure that it doesn't look like that and it doesn't feel like that when it is my turn is to live right now. I'm in my 30s. I have every opportunity in the world to do exactly what it is that I want to do. I could move back to Nashville. I could move to Florida. I could be an idiot and buy a van and sell everything I own and buy a camper van and drive across country. I don't know. I'm not saying that I will. I'm just putting it out there. Because when the time comes and it's my turn to take care of my parents, I will know that I did everything I could to live, to experience, to try things. So that way I'm not feeling stuck or with regret or sad or frustrated with a timeline because I didn't follow through on what it is that I wanted. I didn't follow through on what would make me happy. I didn't prepare for this moment knowing that it would be here. And it doesn't have to be extensive preparation or extensive, super scrutinized financial planning or whatever it is. I can take the daily small steps, build the habits that prepare me in a way that once that time comes, I'm ready. I've accepted what the relationship will be. I have built a life where if I needed both my parents to be with me later, they can be. I've set myself up for success to be able to have the flexibility to do that, the privilege to be able to keep them both in home if that's what they want. I know that we're all going through our own baggage. We're all going through our own trauma. We're all dealing with shitty things, especially around the holidays, especially with our own families. Family drama, family trauma. It's everywhere. You can't run from it. And I'm not going to sit here and act like mine's the worst, because it's not. I know that. It's better than some, it's worse than others. It is what it is, right? This is my reality. But it would be a shame to be living in the current reality that I have and not pull lessons from it. To be sitting here crying about a future that hasn't happened yet, that may not happen. It may turn out to be great. But the real tragedy would be to sit here and not pull any kind of lessons or wisdom from a bad situation. If I can't spend gold out of this shit, I'm not really worth having a podcast to follow. I'm not really worth much of a self-development leader, really, if I can't live by example. Life is not going to wait for me to show up. Life is not going to wait for me to be ready to take risks. Life is going to keep lifing. Same thing for my grandmother right now. She's lucky and very privileged to have children that are available and close by that are there to take care of her. My mom and my uncle do a lot for her. You can't say that for a lot of others, a vast majority of for others. So I can't change what life looks like for my grandmother now. Only she can do that. But the things I can do now are to support my parents in the best way that I know how, and the best way I'm physically or financially capable of doing. But more importantly, the best thing I can do to deal with these types of situations is to use them for perspective and continue to live my life, continue to encourage you, the wanderers, my listeners, the followers for this show, to understand that life is never going to wait until you're ready. And I thought I would close that out for the show specifically, though, because I got that, I think it was kind of kismet in some ways. In December, while my mom was taking care of our grandmother, my brother and his wife were invited to a wedding. One of their college friends was getting married, and the bride was from Colombia. And so they had the wedding in Colombia. So we went to Cartagena, or I think I'm saying that right, Cartagena. And it was beautiful, absolutely lovely. I went as the babysitter, so I watched my nephew while they were at all the different wedding festivities and stuff. And one of the days that we were there, some of my brother's friends and sister-in-law's friends, they went to a beach club for the day and instead went on a boat day. So we did a boat tour of different little islands off the coast of Colombia. And there was a young woman on the boat who came with some friends, and she had a lot of different tattoos, but on her shoulder, she had a tattoo that said, "Life never waits until you're ready." And when I saw that, I wrote that down on my phone immediately, like, this is a sign. This is a universe sign. Gotta write that down. I gotta turn that into an episode somehow. Because it's true, right? Life doesn't wait for you until you're ready. It keeps lifing. And this applies to literally everything, right? Your relationships, your school choices. Do you accept a new job? Do you look for another opportunity when you're miserable? Travel. I could have said no to Colombia, but I said yes. Instead, I decided to go on an adventure. Even when I have very limited PTO and stuff like that. I wanted bonding time with my nephew, that one-on-one stuff that I wouldn't normally get with him. Starting a business, starting a podcast, taking a risk on yourself in some sort of way, whether that's digital products online or content creation or a brick and mortar type place that you want to open up and start for yourself. Starting a new hobby or a skill. If there's something on your mind that you always thought was interesting, but you were too afraid to do it because it's cringe or weird or out there, or, oh my gosh, I'm too old to learn that skill. That's silly. Life's going to keep passing you by. Another year's going to go by. You're going to be another year older. You're going to be another year further along, further away from your birth, and a year closer to your death. Like, life never waits until you're ready. Opportunities are going to come and go, and it's up to you to seize them. And it's up to you to choose what kind of lens you're going to view the world in. Are you going to be super negative and antagonistic and fearful and prideful about what's happening to you? Or are you going to take that and go, all right, this is happening for me. What am I going to take away from it? How do I pull or spin gold out of this nonsense? There's going to be a time in your life where you've got that itch, right? There's going to be some kind of voice in your head. There's going to be some kind of knot in your stomach. There's going to be something, an invisible string pulling you in a direction you never thought you would go or would make sense for where you are in your life right now. But taking risks is all what life's all about. Otherwise, life is going to pass you by because time is always going to choose to move forward, and it's going to walk right past you unless you say yes, unless you walk through that door, unless you accept that opportunity that's in front of you. And I don't want you to end this year thinking life has totally passed you by. I don't want that for you. I think every single day that you're alive, you are one decision away from a completely different life. I don't think there's such a thing as running out of time. Now, maybe biologically, sometimes things happen. Physically, things happen where you have to make lifestyle changes based on those limitations. But there's always an option. There's always a way to build a life that you want, a life that would make you happy, a life that would feel joyful, and a way to spend what time you have left on this earth that makes you feel fulfilled. And I just hope that no matter what you're going through right now, if you're struggling with your identity crisis, your career crisis like me, or you're doing everything you can to dig yourself out of that hole. If you're older, like my grandmother, and you're facing certain situations and you don't really like the new reality you have to live in, what are you doing to accept or mitigate the circumstances that you have before you? Are you holding it all in and lashing out at people because of your own pride, of your own fear, of your own insecurities? Or are you doing what you can to enjoy what might be left of your time? I think I would rather be the type of person that can pull perspective from any type of situation. I would rather be the person I hope that I can live up to as the leader of this show. Somebody that's honest, somebody that does live, even if she's confused, somebody that does try and help others live, even if they don't really know where to start. They don't know what the end chapter is going to look like. They don't know what the story's how the story's going to unfold. I don't know either, but that's why I'm here. And I also hope that that's why you stay and keep listening. I hope that's why you pull something from each of these episodes, or you get a nugget of wisdom, or just a nugget of hope, a nugget of motivation to not let life pass you by, or to let life suck out all the joy simply because you didn't get to do what you wanted to do, or simply because you regret getting to where you are today. There's nothing you can do in the past. In 3 weeks, I'm still going to turn 35. I can't stop that from happening. And in 30 years, it'll be my turn to take care of my parents. I can't stop that from happening. But the thing I can do is prepare myself by learning everything I can about long-term care and what people need, what my parents want at the end of their life, and how to help them get to a place or build that life for themselves, and to keep trying to build a life for myself that is going to enable me to do that. Because I think deep down at the end of the day, people they want to feel free. They want to feel like they live a life that enables them to be who they are, exactly who they are, when they want to be, where they are, I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't know how I'm going to make all that happen, but the last 3 months have just really hammered that home, that life never waits until you're ready. Life is going to keep lifing with or without you, and I hope that you have the gumption and the courage to build your own life, create the life that you love. Listen to your heart, listen to your intuition, and do something about it. If you're miserable, do something about it. Take initiative, take ownership over your life, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Same thing with my grandmother now. If she wants to live a more independent life, or at least a relatively independent way, given her current circumstances, she has to take the initiative to take care of herself and get to a place where she can feel better about herself. And until then, it'll be up to my parents and my aunts and uncles to step in because she needs it. And that's just the reality. So, not to be a total Debbie Downer with the end of the year. Ta-da! 2025, it's over. Congratulations, you made it to the end. I guess I had a lot more to say about it than I originally thought. But that's what's been going on with me. That's one of the reasons I haven't been slinging episodes, because it's so much work. So much work, you guys. Emotionally, mentally, time-wise. It's a lot of work, but I still love it. I still love doing this. Still love these episodes. But that was part 1 for end of the year advice. I love you guys. I mean it. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening to my problems. And I hope that if any of you are going through something similar, that this episode helped you feel not alone or less alone. And just keep your head up, right? Family drama is hard. Generational trauma loops are hard and complicated and messy and heartbreaking and inspiring and simultaneously good for perspective, right? And so I hope that you can do what I'm trying to do now, which is pull out the positive and spin it into something where you don't end up at the end of your life having watched life completely pass you by, because life never waits until you're ready. There's no feeling, there's no moment. Ready is a choice. Same thing as your perspective. That's all I have for you for part 1 of the end of the year. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review, throw a comment in on Spotify or YouTube. On Apple Podcasts, you can leave a review directly, 5 stars, share with your friends, put it on your Instagram stories, put it on your TikToks, tell everybody. And anybody that you think would benefit from this, please share. It means the world to me. I'm so glad to know that there's other people out there struggling just as much as me, but also there's other people out there that are actually benefiting from my ramblings and just the raw, upsetting honesty that I have to put in here some days. This is definitely not a cheer you up episode, but I hope that it made a wanderer's life a little less lonesome. I hope it helped a wanderer out there feel a little less lost. Remember, you can always find me at podcastforthelost.com. All of the social media pages are Podcast for the Lost. And our website is up. You can check out all the episode blogs. You can check out more about me and links to all of our affiliate programs and things like that. All the different products and brands that I use personally and have just been a huge fan of. If you want discount codes, everything like that will either be linked in the show notes or on the website. So be sure to check that out. If you ever have a question for the show and you want to submit a question for the Wanderer Wisdom episodes, the listener Q&A sessions, you can email us hello@podcastforthelost.com, or if you would prefer to do something anonymous, you can submit it at the link in the description box of the show. But I love you. I mean it. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful New Year's. Thanks for being here. Thanks for catching up with me. And thanks for holding space for all the shit that was upsetting me lately. So I appreciate you more than you know. And I will catch you in part 2, and I will see you soon in 2026. Remember, wanderers are always welcome.